Welcome on, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedar Radio, your guides to film playing at the Art House for the week of March 1st to March 7th. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Dave Huffman, back from vacation. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing Neil Jordan's Greta and Florian Henckel von Donnersmarck's Never Look Away.
We'll also be discussing Oscar winners and the Snubs, the awards show everyone should have been watching, and our Cedar 3 picks for great performers who have yet to be rewarded with Oscar Gold. Sorry, Glenn Close. And Dave, you are back.
I am back.
How was your vacation?
It was lovely. When I go on vacation, I see probably the least amount of movies that I ever watch, but I did get to see at least one movie while I was away, and that was a repertory showing of Children of Men at the Alamo Drafthouse down in Austin. And that
on 35 millimeter.
On 35 millimeter,
yeah.
Yes. Actual film. I actually saw a film. And no, it was great. I love that movie. It was wonderful to revisit it.
What was, if it wasn't Children of Men then, what was your last scene today?
The last film I saw was a movie that we played actually at Tower City a couple years ago for a week, I think, is a horror kind of thriller movie called Pet, starring Dominic Monaghan. And it's a good little, strange little genre movie about a man who kidnaps a woman to sort of... because A, he loves her, and
I remember
B,
this movie now. Yes.
Because he has kind of a double motive. It's to A, because he loves her, and B, because he wants to save her. But of course, the film has a lot more complexity to it than that. And the person that he has in there's a reason why she's in a cage, we'll say.
Right.
And it's a very kind of fun little movie. I enjoyed it. It's one of those ones I'd been meaning to watch forever, and it was just perfect because I had a friend that came over, and he also had wanted to watch it forever. And we're like, tonight's the night.
There we go. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Aaron? What was the last thing you saw?
I've been keeping up so far with I don't know if this needs to be a segment or not, but like Art House on Netflix, because like we probably would have been playing this movie if it wasn't for that thing being invented and whatnot.
That thing
on the box by my TV. Paddleton, the Alex Lehmann film with Mark Duplass and Ray Romano. I am becoming a Ray Romano fan.
Really?
I did not like Everyone Loves Raymond as my parents watched it all the time.
I've never seen an episode, so yeah.
And it's sitcom-y, whatever. Right. But his role in The Big Sick, but specifically in Vinyl on HBO a couple of years ago, was spectacular. It continues that kind of what you'd expect from a Mark Duplass, Duplass Brothers production. That has that kind of mumblecore vibe, that early 2000s kind of minimalist, character-driven, small-budget American indie movies. And it's good. It's good. It's a solid movie. It definitely seems like it'd be playing at the Art House if it wasn't, going right
playing
to Netflix.
On your TV. Right.
I thought it was interesting. Mark Duplass had put a few things on Twitter about the movie, saying, he's never really had a wide release for one of his movies. He didn't direct this one. He co-wrote it though, and then stars in it and produces it. But if everybody, on social media just goes and watches it would be the largest audience they've ever had. And it was a good way to kind of tweak, a little marketing in there. But
it's true. I mean, that's what they've been saying, like for a lot of these films, Bird Box and all these other ones, like the amount of eyeballs that are seeing some of these movies just because they are on Netflix.
Right. Easy access.
It's more eyeballs than are going to see them at the theaters, especially on the opening weekend sometimes. But as we've noted before, the experience of those films, certain films definitely still deserve and warrant having the big screen experience.
Right. It's definitely like a performance-based movie, and I always like I'm a fan of the big screen experience just for all movies, but I see the point of like it's not like Arctic, which we just opened, like that's a big screen visual kind of movie.
Right.
The mumblecore genre in general is not a real big screen visual kind of movie. It's very simple, low-key naturalism aesthetic there. So
a fine point.
Natural transition then into Arctic. We opened this week, and you and I have discussed Mads Mikkelsen in the past,
and how obsessed you are with Mads.
Obsessed, and it was great to hear people come up and say, "Oh, that Mads Mikkelsen film, whatever." Right. Like, oh my God, he's a marquee name in the art house world now. This is great.
He actually sells tickets.
He does. He actually sells tickets. Yes.
I always say that there's very few stars that actually sell tickets to movies because most people really don't care.
Right.
But when you have a star that actually someone comes up and just identifies the film,
that's their
by
film.
the person, like that's why they're coming to see it. Right. So
which is one of those it is completely him for like through and through the whole movie. Yeah. Co-star-ish in there too, but no, it's him on screen, hour and 40 minutes, whatever, and It's one of those perfect release times where it's the chilly Cleveland winter and you can go watch Arctic. And
if anyone comes in, I don't remember the name of the actress that is basically unconscious through the whole movie. If someone comes in and says, I want to see one for that lady's movie.
I'll pass her in for free.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
On the house.
Now someone's going to listen to this and they're going to show up this weekend and be like, I'm here for the...
I'm going to plead totally ignorant on that. No, Dave said that. I didn't say that.
That is not a legitimate offer.
It is not. It is not. The big news this week was it was awards weekend. We had the Independent Spirit Awards on Saturday and the Oscars on Sunday. Let's jump in with the Oscars since you weren't here on the Oscar prediction show.
I was not.
Did your predictions all work out?
I think I ended up getting like 17 out of there's 23 or 24 categories.
24, yeah,
so I got 17 right. So, the majority, I'm usually right around there. There was a few obvious surprises this year, and I was... disappointed, but it wouldn't be the Oscars if I wasn't disappointed by certain things. And, like I said, I always say that art is subjective, so you can't really quantify certain things. And we were just talking about, like, any film that's nominated for Best Sound Mixing, clearly they're all of a comparable level of something. So at a certain point, those kind of things, how do you decide which one is the award winner?
Well, we can all still share opinions on the internet. So.
We sure can, and that's what it's all
away
for.
We go.
Yeah, but the obviously we had been expecting, I think, Roma to pull off the upset and be the first foreign language film ever to win Best Picture.
Yes, indeed.
Which did not happen. And the more I think about it now, I'm like, I don't know that any foreign language film is ever going to be able to do that if it is also nominated for Best Foreign Film, because people are going to always go, well, I voted for it for that, and that was recognized in that way. So.
That did not. I mean, as soon as I saw on Twitter that it came through, like when Best Foreign Film, I was like, oh,
yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that ahead of time.
I had thought about it, and actually, whenever he had won cinematography, and I was like saying to my friends, I was like, what person holds the record for most wins for a single film? Because like he would have been able to win a lot of Oscars.
Yeah.
He did win a lot of Oscars.
Well,
he won 3, but
right. But he could have won. He could have won. Editing as well. I think
he could have won editing. He could have won for producing for the film. So he could have gotten quite a few.
Oh no, sorry, wait. They weren't nominated for.
Oh
editing.
No, that's right.
It was sound editing, which he was involved in, but not solely doing there. But anyway, yes, he got plenty of Oscars again this time around too.
But it was, typically, a mixed bag for the Oscars,
right.
As it always is. I was both happy that Olivia Colman won because I think her performance is amazing in The Favorite,
and it was
my favorite movie of the year. So I was so happy. I was so upset that I was like, "Is Favorite not going to win anything?"
Is that the text you sent me?
Yeah, I even sent you. I'm like, whenever it didn't win screenplay, I'm like, Favorite's not going to win anything this year. And then so that kind of upset because everything was leading to say like Glenn Close is going to win,
right?
And poor Glenn Close. That's why we actually changed our Cedarly Pick 3 topic this week to talking about performers that have been nominated and never won up to this point.
That's how you tell it really pissed you off because I was like, well, we already announced what it was going to be last week.
Well, we're
like,
changing
this is
the
important.
Topic.
Okay, fine.
This is film history we're talking about. But I mean, Glenn Close is amazing, and so the wife was a fantastic film and a great performance. But, again, it's art and it's subjective. And maybe everybody felt like, well, everyone's going to be voting for Glenn Close, so I am going to vote for the one I really want to win.
Oh, yeah, very much could be.
And then that tips the scales back.
Yeah.
You don't know what goes through people's brains as they're going through this, because there are some people that are just probably like, I know that one's getting enough votes.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote for the one I really want to win. And then what happens is people vote for their hearts, and then their hearts
and then you get Green Book for Best Picture. Whoops.
And Olivia Colman now has an Oscar, which I love, because if you ever saw the film, if you're not familiar with Olivia Colman, as a lot of Americans really aren't,
probably not.
She's mostly, she's done a lot of British TV, just fantastic. If you've never seen Peep Show, it's a great, weird kind of point of view sitcom that she is one of the stars of. She's great in that. She was in this amazing movie that played at the film festival a few years ago called Tyrannosaur, which she won a lot of critics awards. I think she was up for a BAFTA for that. But it is an amazing performance. And the fact that she didn't win an Oscar for that performance, if you watch that movie, you will absolutely be like, this is a woman who needed an Oscar, and now she's got it. And she can do anything. Like, she is hilariously funny because obviously it's a comedic performance in The Favorite, and you watch Tyrannosaur, and it is just gut-wrenching. I mean, she's an amazing actress. I'll be very curious to see what this does to the trajectory of her career.
Well, she's heading off to do The Crown now, isn't she?
So
no shortage of eyeballs watching that. So
she's always, I mean, she's been a steadily working actress. But sometimes you win the Oscar, it kicks you up to something else.
Oh, for sure.
So will Hollywood be like, what are you going to do with her? I'll be very curious.
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't come up last week when we were talking about the Oscars, but since it's happened now, I wanted to ask you. Most of the opinion pieces going into the Oscars, but then also after the Oscars, seem to be like, if someone gives a political speech or mentions any sort of social justice or social ill in their speech, like, what are you doing? Like, you just talk about the movie. But then I was thinking, those are also like some of the most memorable moments that people talk about. So it's like, is it just like that weird love-hate thing or just generates easy press after the show? Or
I think that it depends on, I mean, some people are passionate about this.
Depends on how it's done, too, I guess.
And, Spike Lee, obviously, I think it was interesting that no one mentioned Donald Trump by name in the entire show. So his name was never brought up
I didn't hear anybody
once.
saying that.
And,
okay.
even like Spike Lee, who gave kind of the most overtly political kind of speech, the one that Trump is like tweeting back at, weirdly having Donald Trump call you a racist is hilarious. So
hilarious or badge of honor? I don't know how that would work.
I don't know.
I mean,
like it's just the strangest world we live in right now. But
I don't know.
There's too many layers.
Yeah, too many layers.
But it is, his speech, while it was not the most eloquent, but I loved the fact that he came up there with apparently handwritten yellow legal pad paper.
Yeah,
that
was
reading
great.
off of his speech, which weirdly I had literally was holding a yellow legal pad paper as I was like writing down, keeping track of our tally as we were doing the Oscars. And I joked with someone to like take a picture of me and tell everybody that I wrote Spike Lee's speech because I had that same tablet. But between him reading off of that tablet and the woman who won for the production design reading off of her phone, which Sandro, who does all of our social media, we were watching the Oscars together, so he was like sitting there live tweeting and stuff for Cleveland Cinemas while we're doing this, and he is so good about monitoring Twitter, and he's like, oh, people are saying this is like an Oscar first. It's the first time someone's read an Oscar speech off of a phone, and I'm like, really? Like, is that true?
Yeah, that feels like that would have happened before.
It could have been, but I'm like,
there's a weird visual to that too, where you kind of look like, are you just checking your status updates
I know, it's
or
just
what?
Weird. Yeah, maybe she was like on Instagram, but he was asking me because I'm apparently supposed to just remember every little bit of information and every bit of film history or something, and I'm like, I don't know if that's true. Like he wanted me to fact check.
Right, I was like, that's a stat that is not on anybody's
I don't remember
top of their head.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is. So I thought that was interesting. But so it was a great year, but it was an Oscar first because she was the first black person to be nominated for production design, or was it black female? No, I think black person. It wasn't even just gender wise, and the first one to win. So there's still all these like barriers being broken down every year. Like you would think by now people would have.
Are we done with the barriers? Yeah,
but no, obviously not, because we still haven't. We've only had one female director win Best Director still too. So it's very, very strange, and it still remains too much of a boys' club. So
it does, even in the nomination aspect too.
Yep.
One area or one different award show, the Independent Spirit Awards on Saturday, had Lynn Ramsey, Tamara Jenkins, and Deborah Granick all up for Best Directors of the Year. It did go to Barry Jenkins for Beale Street Could Talk, and also Best Feature. Barry Jenkins won for If Beale Street Could Talk. And now that you mention it, I don't remember who it was, but somebody did read their speech off a phone at the Independent Spirit Awards.
There you go.
Didn't even occur to me there. But I just wanted to plug that show, as I watched that show on Saturday, but I didn't watch the Oscars. I just sort of watched on Twitter, then looked up clips later on. But I think that was the award show everybody should have been watching, because it was
always
so
a
well
lot
put
more
together.
fun. Yeah.
It was hosted by Aubrey Plaza, so hilarious. And I sent you the clip, the one segment that she did with John Waters.
Oh yeah, the John Waters segment.
And
as
so
if he was directing the show because he had tied up the director,
current director. And then I'm going to mispronounce the name again.
Shangela,
thank you.
You can tell you don't watch enough Drag Race if you don't know who Shangela was.
No, I'm 100% unfamiliar with Drag Race. Came out and did, like, they don't do a song category at the Independent Spirit Awards. So it was this awesome musical number about all these like very serious Best Feature nominees: 8th Grade, First Reform, Beale Street Could Talk, Leave No Trace, and You Never Really Hear, done in like,
as if they all had bad, terrible
club beat kind of song.
It was hilarious.
And they're all these big, super serious, very dour, movies, and they're just all skewered. And they kept cutting to all the directors and stars in it. And like Barry Jenkins was cry laughing at the Beale Street stuff.
Joaquin Phoenix when she says to Joaquin, shave that beard. That was great.
But it was everything I wanted in an award show, and you got to see speeches from Boots Riley, Glenn Close.
Yeah.
You know, she won there. Nicole Hofstetter, one of your favorites.
I love her.
She gave a great speech there. Bo Burnham won an award and gave a speech.
She should have won an Oscar on.
Absolutely, yeah. Deborah Granite gave a speech. Like I was completely satiated with the Independent Spirit Awards this year, just because those are all the people I wanted to hear speeches from.
Just one more thing about Shangela.
Yeah.
She, of course, is also in the Oscar-nominated A Star Is Born. She's one of the drag queens.
At the first scene there?
Yep.
Nice.
She's the kind of one that like runs the club. Shangela is... Not all the contestants from RuPaul's Drag Race have acting chops, shall we say?
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah.
I was like...
So
I went to car racing. For some reason, we said drag racing. I was like...
No, that's the
sure
pun.
She's in there. Gotcha.
So, but Shangela did a great job at the Independent Spirits.
Excellent,
so, I've had many people sharing that clip with me and making sure that I had seen it.
Well, we'll throw it in the show notes. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and click there and make sure you're somewhere we can laugh out loud comfortably and not get in trouble. We'll be right back with the new films opening here this week.
And this week we have some special events, including our ongoing Melt Bar and Grilled Late Shift film series. This week we're showing the classic comedy Clues on Saturday, March 2nd at 9:30 and 11:59, and Sunday, March 3rd at 7 p.m. Plus, as an added bonus for the 9:30 show on Saturday night, we have a live Shadowcast performance by Simply His Servants.
Speaking of Simply His Servants, that is our resident Rocky Horror Picture Show cast. They will be doing double duty that evening. After the 9:30 p.m. show of Clue, they will be performing Rocky Horror as we do the first Saturday of each month at 11:59 p.m., just to keep the time confusion from confusing anybody.
And then we have an added film this weekend on Saturday night, March 2nd. We're going to be playing a really cool new kind of sci-fi thriller movie called Level 16. It's kind of along the lines of Handmaid's Tale. It's about these women that are kind of in this school. They grow up in this school not knowing what the real world is like, and they're kind of bred for a certain purpose, and the mysterious purpose is later revealed why these women are in this school. And that'll be playing at midnight on Saturday night.
The first new film opening this week is writer-director Neil Jordan's Greta, starring Isabella Huppert and Chloe Grace Moretz, about a young woman who befriends a lonely widow who's harboring a dark and deadly agenda towards her.
I guess she's been planting bags around the city. I was hoping someone brings them back to her. And you did. Oh my God, it's her. Just let it ring. I saw the bags, Greta, and I never want to see you again. She's really freaking me out. This is not a problem.
Public area, her rights are protected.
Why are you doing this?
How exciting.
Hi, I'm Frances, and I'll be your waitress for the evening. No, I can't do this. Are you a child?
No, you're the child. You need a mother to hold you.
Don't you dare talk to me about my mother.
She had to die for us to me!
Are you out of your mind?
Look at her! She's full of greetings! She's gone, Frances! Everyone needs a friend.
Dave, I know I was here at the theater when you watched this one,
Yes.
But I haven't talked to you since you watched it, so...
Well, I was so excited for this movie. I generally love Neil Jordan's films. I think he's an interesting filmmaker.
Yeah.
Everything from like Company of Wolves to Crying Game. I mean, he does a lot of different kind of things.
End of the Affair, Michael Cotton, period pieces,
right.
absurd, like, I was trying to think, Butcher Boy and Breakfast on Pluto,
right. He's
crazy,
just done so many things.
different genres.
And so I was like, oh, there's a new Neil Jordan movie. That's that already. And I love Chloe Grace Moretz. I think she's fantastic. And I love Isabelle Huppert. And I'm a fan of sort of like when you watch this trailer, it has this great kind of B-movie vibe.
It does,
and I was like, oh, this is going to be right up my alley. And it did not disappoint.
Okay.
I was very entertained by it. I think the reviews actually have been better than I expected them to be for it.
I didn't look up any reviews yet, actually.
Yeah, it was at like, as of this morning, it was at like 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I think that's probably going to come down a little bit as more serious people kind of go. But it's sort of being reviewed as like, this is a lot of fun.
Right.
To me, it's almost like a throwback. I was was joking about, like, in the 60s, after whatever happened to Baby Jane, there was that whole movement of what's known as hagsploitation, where they have an older actress in sort of like as a psycho thriller kind of thing. You know, like Geraldine Page was in a great one called Whatever Happened to Aunt Alice. If you've never seen that, her and Ruth Gordon, it is fantastic. Yeah. I love that movie. Yeah. I actually almost said to you, like, let's change the pick 3 this week to hagsploitation. But it's a lot of fun. Isabelle Huppert just goes all the way committed to it. Like,
even just in the trailer, she starts off just like this. Oh, I'm just this quiet little, aging woman cuckoo on her own, and then by the end, you're just like, she's chewing scenery just in the trailer. By the end, it's crazy.
Great. And Chloe Grace Moretz is really good. It is a very kind of by the book kind of thriller in a lot of ways, but it is very entertaining and well made, and it's got a couple of great performances. So I hope people do come out and check it out.
I was looking up Neil Jordan because I've kind of been off and on with his movies. It's there's never been one where I was like, I have to keep up with everything he sees. But he's generally a quality director that, like, if the trailer hits me, I'll go check it out. I'd forgotten what a huge splash The Crying Game was when that opened. In 92, it came out, made it for like $3 million, ended up making $62 million. Yeah. That's crazy on an art house level, but then like the twist ending to it. And
again, from the man whose name shall not be mentioned
back in the Miramax days.
Back in the Miramax days. Did a brilliant.
You mentioned it.
I did. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll beep it out.
Yeah, bleep it. Oh my God, totally bleep it out. But that movie was such a cultural moment where, before the internet was really a thing that could have ruined everything with spoilers.
Good point. Yeah.
That movie, you would have a real hard time today, because the whole marketing point was like, don't tell people what you saw. Like, just go. And just, it was kind of a throwback to Hitchcock with Psycho.
Right.
He was like, don't talk about it. Don't tell anybody. Yeah. Let people be surprised. And they
did
Blair
Witch, like I
mentioned
with Sam last week. We're like, pre-modern internet at that point. But no internet in 92.
And this movie really, The Crying Game was a real... And I remember Roger Ebert at the time, when the Oscar nominations came out and Jay Davidson was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Yeah, he was actually upset about that. Yeah, he was like, "This is they've just ruined the movie. Like, the whole point of this movie is that now people know like the twist." I'm sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah,
but I do think
retroactive spoiler alert.
I think there is
a 1992 film.
I think there is a statute of limitations on spoiler alerts whenever the film has been out for decades. I don't think you need to say spoiler alert anymore.
No. But anyway, if you want to do a pairing, if you haven't seen The Crying Game,
absolutely.
Spoilers now known.
But this is the
thing.
It's
still a quality film.
To me, as soon as the movie started, I'm like, oh, that's a guy. Like, there was no, it just shows to me, like, but again, being a gay person with a more queer perspective, I'm like not surprised that there might be a trans person in a movie or a character, you know what I mean? So it was not exactly a big surprise to me. And all these people in the audience is like, and I'm like, what? You didn't realize that was a guy? Like, clearly that was but, so I just thought that was sort of hilarious to me, that people don't always see what's obviously right in front of them.
Right.
And this week we're also opening Never Look Away, the Oscar-nominated new film by Florian Henckel von Donnersmarck, which is one of my favorite director names. I love that name. And it is a film about a German artist, Kurt Barsnet, who's escaped East Germany and now lives in West Germany, but is tormented by his childhood under the Nazis and the German Democratic Republic.
Which plays directly into his previous film, The Lives of Others.
Absolutely.
Similar time period. This is a much broader scope. I think it's like 30-year kind of scope of what it means to be an artist, but then also searching for inspiration. Because when he's in, under the heel, I would say, of the GDR, it's only certain sanctioned art that you're allowed to do. But once you can escape to the West, and it's like, wait, what do I pursue?
Right.
As far as like my artistic impulses go.
And all of his, has a similar sort of theme about the government watching or being watched, and then this one's about the freedom of no longer being watched.
Right.
So, yeah, he's an amazing filmmaker. If you haven't seen Lives of Others, that is
that's a required viewing.
That is absolutely required
100%.
viewing. That was, if not the best movie that year, it was certainly in the top 5.
I was looking it up, and not that it's a indicator of quality or not, which we're saying it's a high quality film, but it was one of the highest grossing, if not the highest grossing foreign film that year when it came out, because it did. I mean, we played it here for so long. Yeah. So I think it was one of those we had pre and post Oscars when it was nominated, people catch up with it, but then there was like that bump once it won. We're like, that one?
Yeah.
And it also, speaking of word of mouth and traveling, like people were so like, no, you've got to see this movie. I think we have to mention that also he's a young-ish director. He's only got 3 features. His follow-up to The Lives of Others was The Tourist.
Oh, that's right.
Johnny Depp and Angelina Jolie,
yes.
which I'm going to say I've read a bunch about that.
Golden Globe nominee?
Golden Globe nominated for comedy,
for
was
best
it?
Comedy,
Best comedy,
even though there's not one bit of comedy in the whole movie.
I remember that
I'm
movie.
Sorry, comedy or musical.
Comedy or musical,
it had
right.
neither comedy nor musical.
Right, yeah. They cut out the big musical number at the end there. I was looking that up because in my head, I'm like, Tourist, gigantic bomb, huge flop. It made almost $300 million worldwide. Like, that's not exactly a flop by any stretch of the imagination.
It was just critically derided here in the States.
The caveat to that is, like, it was a very troubled production. Like, directors kind of came and went, stars came and went. Like, there's just no way that one was going to end up working out. So anyway, he's back to his native Germany now, making his third feature film. And he's also that unique foreign film this year. As we've been saying, 2018 is the year of foreign films as well as documentaries, where it Never Look Away was it 3 nominations?
It got cinematography
and best foreign film.
Best foreign film. I think just those 2.
Or it was one of 3 foreign films that got multiple nominations. That's what I was trying to say with my unreadable notes here. So, it did not unfortunately win the best foreign film. Not
unfortunately.
Sorry, Roma.
This year was just this year for best foreign language film is
so
one of the strongest.
It doesn't even have Burning on there either.
No, that's what I mean. Like, there's such amazing films that didn't get nominated. This is like one of those years where any one of these in any other year would have been the film that won.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, Never Look Away, had this been another year,
it definitely would have won. Yeah.
And the one thing I will say, this is a longer film. It's about 3 hours long, but it is absolutely worth the time and attention that you would be giving to this film, and I would encourage you to come see it. I know some people like to be Oscar completionists, and they're like, oh, well, the Oscars already happened. I didn't get to see it before the Oscars. I don't care anymore. Well,
it's so strong of a slate. You need to see 100%. At least all the nominations, if not even more stuff. Birds of Paradise coming up, too, which was on the short list but didn't make it to the Oscars, is well worth seeing. Never Look Away is one of those perfect dinner to movie kind of movies here. Go get a good dinner at one of the great restaurants on the street. Make sure you're full because it's 3 hours.
It is, yes.
And then come and enjoy the movie.
But if you get hungry in the middle, you can always come out and buy
some
popcorn.
We got to keep snacking here. But dinner and a movie and then
get yourself
snack
a little
away
Russian
or grab yourself a cocktail.
or a vegan cookie.
We'll be right back with our Cedarly 3 picks after we tell you about this week's Met Opera offerings and a classic film.
And we have our ongoing Met Opera in HD on the big screen this weekend. We are going to be playing Donizetti's La Fille du Régiment on Saturday, March 2nd at 12:55 p.m. That is a live presentation. And then Wednesday, March 6th at 6:30 p.m. for an encore. And interestingly, this one has Kathleen Turner in a non-singing speaking role only, making her Met debut.
We also have our second presentation of Gone with the Wind on the big screen, Sunday, March 3rd at 1 p.m. And I found a new critical quote for this one. The lavishness of its production, the consummate care and skill which went into its making, the assemblage of its fine cast and expert technical staff, combined in presenting a theatrical attraction, completely justifying the princely investment of $3.9 million. You can see it all on the screen, Sunday, March 3rd at 1 p.m. And we are back with our Cedarly 3 segment this week, where we take inspiration from something going on in the film world or one of the films we're showing and suggest 3 films to broaden your cinematic horizons. Dave hijacked this week's. So, Dave, what are we talking about this week?
This is the Close But No Cigar segment that everyone's been talking about since Glenn Close was expected to win her Oscar for The Wife this weekend, but now she is just a 7-time, I don't want to say loser, but, 7-time Oscar nominee, and 7 times she has got to go home, just with the comfort in knowing that she's one of the greatest living actresses and has been nominated 7 times for an award that most people would never, ever even come close to being nominated once for. So.
I wrote down egregious Oscar snubs. I don't know if that was what you texted me or if that was just like how I interpreted your rage.
We already did a segment earlier about Oscar snubs.
Right, when The Wife came out.
But I wanted to specifically talk more about
just acting
to kind of comfort Glenn Close, to let her know she's in great company of many people. People always cite the most kind of often cited person who's never won an Oscar that people are in shock that never won an Oscar is Alfred Hitchcock. People
can't
believe that Hitchcock never won an Oscar.
Right.
The greatest filmmaker of
Chaplin
all time.
got an honorary Oscar but never won an Oscar. Right.
And well, there's a lot of people that, and some of the people I'll talk about today got honoraries, but they never won a competitive Oscar. And like Spike Lee had already received an honorary Oscar.
Right.
But
Middle
now he
career.
finally won his,
Yeah.
I think they realized we got to do this because he's an amazing filmmaker.
You might say have to do the right thing.
No, I loved when he worked that into his little speech.
Yeah, that was really good.
Well, the first person I'm going to talk about is someone who hopefully will still win an Oscar. She has been nominated 6 times, and she has still not won, and that is Amy Adams. She was just nominated again, and in my opinion, should have won this year for Best Supporting Actress. I think the best part about Vice is her. Like, that to me was the best part of that movie. I don't
care for the movie too much, but she is definitely the best part of that movie.
And she always is great. And then the film I want to point out was the film that I would recommend people check out if you didn't see, is a film that played here at the Cedar Lee. It was Junebug. It was the film that she was first nominated for. And it is an amazing performance. She's just plays this wonderfully kind of, I don't want to call her simple, but just sort of like naive, chatty little person who is just a great character and just such a real person. Mm-hmm. And I just remember watching that film so enamored by her and just thinking, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And I love her, and I look forward to her someday. She's been nominated 5 times as supporting actress, only once as the lead actress, I think, for American Hustle. And otherwise, I mean, she's amazing. So hopefully she will still, like Glenn Close, still win an Oscar someday, but has not yet.
Just age-wise too, she has some time.
She has. I mean, Close, she's had 6 nominations, and she's not even 40 yet, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
if 40 maybe. But
she's amazing.
I had her on my list as not one I was going to pick, but I did think about it. Peter O'Toole has 8 nominations. Glenn Close has 7. Amy Adams already at 6. So I was like, they're already all in really good company.
Right.
Also Richard Burton has 7 as well too. But so, or she's young enough that she's just going to rack up 9, 10, 11 and become that new one.
Maybe she'll be like, who was it?
New snub queen.
Well, Susan Lucci for the Emmys.
Oh, right.
She was like nominated like over like 20 times or
something. It's
finally
double
won.
digits, for that one.
So, And Erin, who was the first person you want to talk about? As you just snuck in a bunch of other names there.
With one, well, no, those weren't ones that were in contention just yet. Yeah. I went back when you say people that didn't win but should have. I never remember if Jana Rollins won for Woman Under the Influence or not. And I always have in my head that, like, she won for that because it's so strong. And it's one of those performances I remember in film school. It was like when we first were talking about John Cassavetes and we watched that movie, that was just like, this is acting. Because, like, there are parts where it's very showy, but she's playing someone that, with a mental disability to a certain extent. And it's not a scenery chewing kind of showy performance. It's subtle. And it is showy at times when it needs to be. But then also when she comes back, she returns back to the home and you could just tell, like, oh, you're not you anymore. Like, it's such a layered performance that she was nominated for but did not win. But, as I mentioned.
Do you remember who won that year?
I didn't take that extensive of notes. Yeah, it was 1974 if anybody wants to check that out.
Yeah,
but,
I didn't write that down either, so I'm not judging you.
I had John Cassavetes in the brain because I recommended a movie of his last week, and I was just like, oh, that Woman of the Influence part is so strong. So that is my first recommendation.
You had you mentioned, I didn't feel like we could do the segment without talking about Peter O'Toole, since he has, I think, the most acting nominations without a win, with 8. Yeah. He did end up getting an honorary Oscar for a Lifetime Achievement back in 2002. But the film I wanted to recommend for him for performance is The Stunt Man from 1980, Richard Rush's film. And it is just a great movie about movie making. He plays this maniacal director. So if you've never seen The Stunt Man, it's kind of essential viewing, I would say. It's one of the best films of that decade. He's just fantastic in it. And sometimes, he's very Peter O'Toole in that movie.
Yeah.
And that means something. If you've seen enough Peter O'Toole movies, it is, he's fantastic, though. And we are going to be showing Lawrence of Arabia in a few months here at the Cedar Lee as part of the Turner Classic Movie Series. So if you have another chance to see, his most iconic performance. But
also go back to the beginning of the show, talk about a big screen movie.
Yeah,
like,
100%. Yeah, you got to see Lawrence. Actually, I was just talking to my fiance about it because he has never seen it. I'm like, well, when we show it, you're absolutely coming to see it. And the other,
I was going to say he was the one that almost had that Glenn Close thing when he did Venus a few years back, where everyone was like, oh, this is the one. He's going to get it for.
But there was a time in Hollywood when the person that had been the senior person that was nominated for an Oscar always would win just because it was like their way of getting, all right, we got to give it to him. But they don't seem to have that kind of level of sentimentality anymore, as Glenn Close will attest.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
But as I was looking up the Stunt Man, I was like, Richard Rush, I can't think of what other things he really directed. And Stunt Man really sticks out like a sore thumb as far as an artistic achievement in his career. And
for sure.
The movie he made after that, it was 14 years later, and he made the terrible, terrible, terrible movie, The Color of Night, with Bruce Willis.
Ooh.
I was like, your follow-up to The Stunt Man was
Shivers.
The Color of Night, and it took you 14 years?
That always makes me wonder, because he's of that generation, too, where like people retired with dignity and just like lived out the rest of their lives. They didn't act until the moment that they, collapsed. What would bring you back for that movie?
I don't have an answer.
I've never read it, so maybe it's just a great screenplay that didn't work out.
Weirdly, I almost rewatched The Color of Night this weekend because it just kind of came up as a joke, and I was like, "Oh, we should totally watch it to see if it's like as bad as we all remembered." But it was. But The Stunt Man is an amazing film, and he was nominated for Best Director for that as well. And Peter O'Toole, I think, should have won that year.
One of the classics of like the behind the scenes kind of like how movies are made sort of one.
Yep, great.
My next one I'm going to go with is Naomi Watts. She has been, I think she kind of came to prominence after Mulholland Drive, at least here in America. Yep. She was nominated, though, for 21 Grams and The Impossible.
Yeah.
Which I got problems with that movie, but she's really good.
Amazing in that movie.
She's the perpetual actor who is great, even in terrible movies.
Yeah.
So I would say the one of hers to see for sure would be Tank Girl. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Wait,
Mulholland
she was
Drive.
in Tank Girl?
She was in Tank Girl, yeah.
I did not remember that. I always defend Tank Girl, actually.
It's a fun movie, but
totally
how many times
Girl.
you get to see Ice-T as a kangaroo?
As a sentient kangaroo being. You're right. No, it's a great movie.
No, that's not the recommendation. It would definitely be Mulholland Drive, where she plays Betty/Diane, depending on what scene she's in there. And the point of reference that sealed it for me, even the first time watching it, she rehearses a scene for an audition in a really comic way in the kitchen at home with I'm forgetting the co-star's name now, Laura Harding, I think.
Yes,
and
that's right.
It's comedic, and you're just like, God, this is terrible soap opera writing, and you feel it, which is also a testament to the writing and directing of that film by David Lynch. And then when you see her do the actual audition scene, you're like, this is the steamiest, most passionate, like, holy cow.
She does it in a complete different way.
This is an actor. Yeah, absolutely. So Mulholland Drive for Naomi Watts someday.
An excellent choice. My final one that I wanted to talk about was another iconic film legend, which is Barbara Stanwyck, who was nominated 4 times for films like Stella Dallas and Ball of Fire, which is, of course, a brilliant comedy, and Sorry, Wrong Number, which is actually a really kind of fun sort of, I would say, like fun dated bad movie, but I enjoy Sorry, Wrong Number. I kind of forgot she was nominated for that. But the film you absolutely, if you have not seen, I have to say shame on you, is Double Indemnity. She was nominated, did not win for Billy Wilder's fantastic, iconic film noir, and it is really one of the greatest films ever made. And she is so good in that movie, where you don't ever fully know her motivations in it. And she does so much kind of like manipulating Fred McMurray, but in this great way. It's such a brilliant performance and a great movie. And I just love watching old Barbara Stanwyck films, especially she's sort of like the poster child of pre-Code movies. She did a lot of movies before the Hays Code was in force.
Was that Babyface?
Yeah, she was in Babyface and just lots of great, weird little movies. So check out Barbara Stanwyck. She deserves to be seen.
My last one is, I guess I had kind of more modern ones than you had there. I had Julia Delpy, who I'm a gigantic fan of, from her writing, some directing as well, but then mostly her performances. Again, a very varied career where she's usually doing very strong performances, even if she's in An American Werewolf in Paris or like other ones that are kind of like, really?
Garbage
This
movies.
one? But I didn't realize that she'd even been nominated before. She's been nominated twice for Best Screenplay because she was co-writing Before Sunset, Before Midnight. That was sort of the performance I would single out. I would say probably Before Sunset.
See, I'm going to call that this is a cheat on your part because we're supposed to be talking about actors nominated for their acting, and you're talking about someone who's nominated for her writing. But
I thought it was just nominated for it.
I'm just picking on you.
I was like, she was nominated for it. And that nomination is very deserved. I think they should have won for those as well. But I think she should have been nominated for those too, because I think, especially in Before Sunset, she's the one playing the more emotional roller coaster part of that, where like they're finally reunited. And
her performance in those films are so naturalistic, though, and I think people just underestimate how much of it is performance, and it's just like, oh, they're just being themselves kind of thing.
It's
not.
Got to be such a gift though as an actor too, where you're writing it, you're living with these characters, and you get to explore it over 3 different parts of their life, and hopefully 4 or 5. Let's keep going there, guys. That sort of thing, and you're really living with that character. And like you said, I think you're right. Like people may just assume like, oh, we were writing it, that's you.
Yeah.
Like no, that's not her. That's a character she's playing. She's totally. How often do you get as an actor to create a character, write the character, perform the character, and see it successfully on screen in 3 different movies? On next week's episode, we'll be discussing 4 new movies because it's one of those like clean house after the awards of 2018. We'll be discussing Todd Douglas Miller's Apollo 11, Oscar Ferrati's Everybody Knows, Michelle Schumacher's I'm Not Here, and Klaus Raffle's The Invisibles. Our next week's Cedarly 3 will be the 1-week delayed topic of 2018 is done. The books are closed for 2018. We are looking onward to 2019 and our most anticipated films as of right now for 2019. Submit any picks or recommendations at Cedarly3 using the hashtag Cedarly3, the number 3. As always, thank you for tuning in to Cedarly Radio and lending us your ears this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for correct showtimes and to purchase advance tickets. Also, there are links in the show notes. You can use those if you'd like as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Cedarly Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end because we're fancy like that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, leave us a rating and review, or better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. We'll see you at the movies.